crossroads of Africa, Asia, and Europe, a region known as the cradle of civilization. The first empires began here 5,000 years ago. As other great powers emerged, the land surrounding Jerusalem became a constant battleground. Each civilization left its mark here. The Romans built vast port cities on the Mediterranean Sea. On the tombs of biblical prophets, Muslims built shrines. High plateau above the Dead Sea, King Herod the Great built Masada, a mountain fortress where Jewish rebels made their last stand against the Roman army. In the Judean desert, early Christians built remote monasteries, some still inhabited to this day. Over 40 times, Jerusalem is many cities, each one built on the ruins of another, and most can still be found beneath our feet.
Imagine you're a detective and you try to solve a mystery based on pieces of evidence that you put together. That's exactly what archaeologists do, except that we do it for the past. One of the things that makes Jerusalem such an exciting place to work is the continuous occupation layers, one on top of the other, going all the way back 5,000 years ago to the first inhabitants, the biblical Jebusites, and then through the Israelites and the Roman period and the Crusaders, and all the way up until today. Understanding ancient Jerusalem is like trying to put together a giant puzzle where we're missing most of the pieces and we don't know what the original picture looked like. Everything that we dig up out of the ground is a new piece of that puzzle. In the heart of a region that has yielded some of archaeology's most incredible finds. One of the most spectacular finds is the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were written over 2,000 years ago and are by far the oldest copies we have of the Hebrew Bible. At the deepest levels under the ground, we find the earliest remains of the people who lived in this land. is it that drew people to Jerusalem in the first place? It's an isolated, poor, rocky mountain town. The answer is simple: water. In the heart of the ancient city of Jerusalem is a spring which has fresh water in it all year round. So the inhabitants cut a tunnel through solid bedrock to get to that water.
Along with water, there is another reason Jerusalem became important, and that was at the top of the hill that overlooked the city. The large outcrop of bedrock, where it is believed the Jebusites worshipped the god of the setting sun. In Jewish tradition, this is the foundation stone where the world was created. And some of the most important stories in the Bible took place. Abraham prepared to sacrifice his son in a test of faith. King David brought the Ark of the Covenant. And King Solomon built the first temple, the house of God. Even after the temple was destroyed by the Babylonians, the belief survived, passed down through the Bible, that Jerusalem was the closest place on earth to God.
My grandfather came to Jerusalem when he was 12 years old in 1936 because his father felt that something bad is going to happen in Europe. But all the rest of his family stayed in Poland, and they all perished during the Holocaust. He made research about every place in the old city, and he even wrote 7 books about Jerusalem. And now, in his 90s, he's still learning every day something new about Jerusalem. It's his biggest love, I think, after his wife. But I'm sure that part of his love to Jerusalem has passed to his family and to me. There's a tomb on the Mount of Olives named after the prophet Zechariah. That's where my family's name comes from. Zechariah saw the destruction of Jerusalem over 2,000 years ago. But he prophesied that one day the Jewish people would return to their homeland. At the end of our holiest days, like Yom Kippur and Passover, we sing "Next Year in Jerusalem." For hundreds of years, this was the Jewish dream, to be back in Jerusalem. And I have the chance to live that dream. is in this place. I have this tradition to go every birthday and to put a prayer note in the wall. We believe all prayers pass through the wall on their way to God.
A site of Jewish longing for generations, the Western Wall is one of 4 walls that support the enormous stone platform where 2,000 years ago King Herod the Great rebuilt the temple on a scale comparable to the Great Pyramids of Egypt.
When Herod rebuilt the temple, he surrounded the platform on which it stood with a massive wall. We're now rounding the southwest corner of this wall, and as we come around, I want you to look at the giant stones that are built into the wall. In fact, think about this. How did they get these huge stones into position without the kind of modern machinery that we have today?
Using written records and the latest archaeological findings, we can imagine what the Second Temple might have looked like at the height of its splendor. Today, long after the Second Temple was destroyed by the Roman army, Jews mourn its loss at the wall that once stood closest to it, the Western Wall.
Years ago, my family came from Greece and Italy to see the Holy Land, and they stayed. My mother's family settled here in Bethlehem. It's the city where Jesus was born. On Easter, we all get together in front of the Church of the Nativity. And sometimes I even get to sing there with my choir.
Centuries, Christian pilgrims have traced the footsteps of Jesus, from his birth in Bethlehem to his death in Jerusalem. They follow the River Jordan, where many believe he was baptized, until it meets the Sea of Galilee. To the Gospels, he began his ministry in the village of Capernaum and taught in its synagogue. On these shores, Christians believe he gave some of his most famous sermons and found disciples among the local fishermen. It is here, in Jerusalem's Garden of Gethsemane, that the New Testament says he was arrested before being sentenced to death. thousands of pilgrims walk the Via Dolorosa, or Way of Sorrows, said to be the path Jesus took on his way to crucifixion. The procession ends inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
Church is very special to me. Sometimes I see people who have dreamed their whole life of coming here. I realize how lucky I am to live in Jerusalem. I can come to the church anytime I want, to touch the rock of Golgotha. It's where we believe Jesus died on the cross. Visit the tomb where he was buried, and 3 days later rose from the dead.
Many believe Jesus was crucified and buried here. We have to go underground. Deep below the church, archaeologists found ancient graffiti. A ship drawn by a pilgrim with an inscription in Latin that reads, "O Lord, we have come." Dated to over 1700 years ago, it suggests that Christians worshipped here even before the church was built. In another part of the church are ancient tombs cut into a rocky hill known as Golgotha. Most archaeologists believe this was a Jewish cemetery in the time of Jesus. These tombs in the rock of Golgotha would later become the site of Christianity's most important church, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Ultimately, archaeology cannot prove Jesus was buried here. This remains a matter of faith.
My family has deep roots in Jerusalem. We've been here for hundreds of years. We love talking about family history, especially during the month of Ramadan, when the whole family gathers to break the fast. Every street competes to see who can make the best decorations and who can throw the biggest parade.
Muslim world, Jerusalem is the city of the prophets, Abraham, David, and Jesus. Muslims believe that the last of the prophets was Muhammad, and that one night he was taken on a miraculous journey from Mecca to Jerusalem, where he ascended to heaven.